Hello and welcome to the Psyched podcast. I'm your host, Kaya Roman, and today I am so psyched to have Talia Eisenberg with me. Talia is one of my favorite people on the planet, and I do not say that lightly, Talia. I'm going to tell you her official bio, but let me tell you her unofficial bio is that Talia saves lives. Talia spends pretty much all of her time saving lives. And I would like to consider myself among one of the lives that you have saved. But let me tell you a little bit about her officially. Talia is an experienced entrepreneur focused on treating addiction and other mental health conditions with the psychedelic medicine Ibogaine. In 2021, Talia co-founded Beond in Cancun to provide Ibogaine therapy with the highest level of personalized medical care from a team of doctors, nurses, and therapists who've been successfully working with Ibogaine for decades. Beond uses a 5-phase delivery model called insight-oriented Ibogaine, which spans medical evaluation, preparation, treatment, and both immediate and long-term aftercare. And we're going to hear what that means. But I can tell you from personal experience, having been at Beond for Ibogaine treatment, what Talia and her team have created there is truly remarkable. So, Talia, welcome to the podcast. And I would like to start by hearing your story. I've heard it, it's totally mind blowing. I want everyone to hear it. How did you find Ibogaine, and what what role did Ibogaine play in your healing early in your life?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to witness your own growth through this work as well, and to consider you a friend. So I'm happy to be here. Um, well, so, like many people, I'm not unique. I grew up and always felt different and probably didn't have the tools that I needed. My grandparents survived the Holocaust on my father's side.
Mm.
And so I think there's intergenerational trauma. And I also grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, Jewish, which is it's a small conservative town. And by the time, and my father's side's like European and eccentric and um, pretty lively. And there wasn't a lot of boundaries or any of that. By the time I was 14, 15, I was traveling a lot and was living, I think at 15 or 16 in Istanbul already by myself with my first boyfriend, and going out a lot and doing wild things, taking lots of drugs. And I've always been a seeker, searching for meaning, even through drugs or through conversations. And I think that false sense of God through drugs and just being okay, being calm, and really helped my underlying anxiety that I've always felt since I was a little girl.
Mm.
Um, so I was searching for meaning, and I think, developed an eating disorder by the age of 15. I remember throwing up for the first time in Istanbul, surrounded by a lot of opulence, lots of food, lots of materialism, also wanting to be skinnier, even though I was already really skinny. That just
Mm.
sense of not being good enough, never enough, and trying to fill that spiritual void um, was apparent for me pretty much all the time. It was painful, a painful existence. And that helped. I think that helped with the, feel the endorphins. There was a rush there. And then I think I was at a dentist or something at 16 or 17 and was prescribed opiates for some tooth procedure, and
Whoa.
had already tried every drug that there was, just as a seeker, but also because I wanted to numb the pain. And that for me was profound. I felt just a deep sense of okayness that I now realize we can find on our own. through day-to-day practice and changing the way we think and changing our actions. But at the time that did it, and that was almost, I don't know, 15, maybe almost 20 years ago or something. Yeah, a long time ago, before there was this very well-known opiate crisis, before there was a lot of regulation on opiates. And so it was very easy to get prescriptions then. There was doctor shopping was I remember in New York City being able to just go up to a window and get a prescription without even talking to the doctor. The doctor was in the back room, and there was some assistant that would give you a prescription, things like that. And before I knew it, I was in some nightclub one night, some very exclusive, cool Manhattan nightclub, and a beautiful Calvin Klein model walked up to me, and the setting was right. You're in the DJ booth. Maybe I already had a few drinks in me, and he offered me opium in this beautiful crystal jar, and he just called it opium. He didn't say it was heroin, of course. Because maybe that would have scared me. But I tried that. And then that for me, I remember saying to myself, I want to do this every day, the rest of my life, because I just felt such a relief from pain. And before I knew it, I did that for about a year, passed by in a blink of an eye. And that became my reality. And then after, a certain amount of time, I realized I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. And that was scary, because somehow something in me knew that I wanted to live, and that this was just some sort of a wisdom experience. I needed to go through this, but I couldn't stop on my own. And through this, my parents were great. I mean, they sent me to incredible, fancy rehabs with good therapists and well-known facilities, Hazelden and Betty Ford, like Sierra Tucson's. And I was very fortunate. This was only for a year or two that this was going on. But every time I would leave these rehabs, I would realize that 2 or 3 weeks later, I would need an opiate. It was something physiological. It was, I couldn't help it, even with therapy and aftercare and all of this stuff. And so a dear friend of mine named Matthew Mellon, who's no longer with us, he had told me that Ibogaine worked for him as a reset, as a way to get off the opiates, not as a silver bullet, but really as a way to reset your receptors and have a rapid detox, and I think a new level of consciousness. And I did go to an Ibogaine facility in Mexico. And that sort of inspired me to do what I'm doing now, because at this facility, I think these people meant really well, but they're, especially for addiction and detox, I think there needs to be medical professionals. Ibogaine is risky for the heart. And there wasn't that, just because it was, I think, a different time then, many years ago, and probably doctors weren't so open to working with this like they are today. But I did experience a profound, first of all, the cravings. I was real, if anyone that's addicted to opiates, if they stop taking it, they will be shitting their pants. And I think Charles Bukowski said it best, like, you'll crawl through a sewage of shit to get to the opiate. You need it so bad. It's all you can think about. You want to take your skin off, you're sweating. And so that relief, was incredible. I had tried to detox, I don't know, 30 or 40 times in the past 2 years, and sometimes was in these rehabs trying to do it. And so that was huge. But I think even more huge was the spiritual transformation I felt, the visions that I had. I saw my grandmother, who had survived the Holocaust, and she was a woman that was just purely love-based. She was almost enlightened. And so I knew what that love from her, she didn't have resentment or anger at anybody, even though she witnessed the worst, her whole family murdered in front of her. But she truly was a light being. And I remember that she had lived for a reason, and I was her future generation. I'm here to give back and not to just be a zombie and take on the planet. And that, since then I haven't touched an opiate or even alcohol, which wasn't a problem, but I just didn't want to put any more poison into my body. And that was 13 or 14 almost years ago. And so the Ibogaine, so that was really the catalyst for my spiritual growth, is that experience. And I had to leave and figure out my own aftercare. And that's really how we want to be different at Beond. Each person leaves with an integration plan that's unique to them based on their visions and what they've unpacked with their therapists on site. And then we really do try to set them up for success when they do leave. People go to aftercare. People, some people go back home, but they have a therapist and they have a community around them that we try and inspire them with. So what I did was I left New York City because it was just too intense, and I moved to Boulder, Colorado. And I was blessed to somehow be connected with Marcella Ortalora. I can never say her name well, but she inspired Rick Doblin, because she comes from South America. She's older now, but she somehow, used MDMA for her. There was sexual abuse in her childhood. And because of that, Rick figured this out with MDMA, and she's a big, and she now leads she's a PI on the trials, and she's still a working therapist in Boulder. But this woman took good care of me, and I went there every week and sat with her, and she really helped me to unpack what I had seen, and also look at some of the dysfunction in my family and really heal. She was my advocate. And one of the first things I did was call Rick Doblin, and I think it was a very small organization then. I think there was probably 5 people working there, and it was so beautiful. I was, this 22-year-old kid, 22, about 22 years old, all excited about Ibogaine and how we need to bring this to the world, and wanting to go and tell people in methadone lines about this. And I quickly realized that there needs to be more support set up around it. You can't just give people Ibogaine in a vacuum. But Rick was truly interested in helping and connected me to researchers in Israel. And I think I went to some MAPS meeting in Denver where he was at with a few people. And so that was great. So that's how I got involved. And through the years, I've started different businesses that all have to do with harm reduction. I had like an early vape company before big tobacco was involved, and they were trying to give it to children. My goal really there was harm reduction, and how can we get people off of cigarettes and switch them over to something healthier, and then help them taper off of the vape, things like that. And go to Peru and have worked with the Shipibo and done dietas. Ayahuasca was a big part of my early recovery, as well as yoga and somatic therapy. And I guess somehow, I think one of my gifts, that doesn't come from me, is just this desire to heal. Show me where I'm broken. I want to heal these. I want to bring these parts to the light. I don't know what it is, but I love that in myself and helping others with that. And then I don't want to keep talking too much, but
oh my God, please keep talking.
I think that, through, and it's been hard at times, but somehow I have never wanted to poison myself, have definitely, have had anger problems and other things that I've worked through for the most part. Met my husband, who's just this incredible person, and felt alive, awake by him, and inspired. And together we have grown and, moved to Mill Valley and had children, and was able to get an MBA in sustainability. So really which has helped this business at Beond, I think, because the question with that is, how can we use business for good, help the planet, help people, create revenue, but give back in ways. And so that's been my journey. And then just in the last few years, I think the biggest problem has been that, that's my story. And I get a lot of inquiries from friends and the public about where they should go for Ibogaine that's safe and effective, where there's therapists and other things,
Hi there.
where they can go to get a healing. And I really couldn't. We're gonna have to edit that.
We can pause.
So people ask me where to go to have an Ibogaine experience that's safe and effective. And I really couldn't think of a place that had, there's places that have great some medical support, but what I saw was lacking was the preparation and integration therapy. And so we decided to create it. And that is how Beond was born. And
Wow. What I find so remarkable about your story, Talia, is that like every part of your journey, starting with your grandmother, which is something that you and I both have in common, grandmothers who survived the Holocaust and watched their whole families be murdered. And we carry that generational trauma in our DNA. And I think starting from there, when you talk about this light that's coming through you that wants to heal, I mean, I think there's a mission there that like runs through your veins, but every single part of your story, from your struggles and your experiences at a ridiculously young age, and then experiencing the healing power of Ibogaine, but under crazy circumstances. I mean, I remember you telling me about, taking Ibogaine in the backseat of a car and just like realizing that even under the craziest circumstances, this works and nothing else works. And yet you had to go out and try this therapy and this integration and this tool. And from what I've witnessed, then you and Tom, your incredible partner, have come together and brought all of these tools into this place at Beond to create kind of like the ideal week-long experience that I feel very fortunate that I got to go and experience. And I wasn't dealing with an addiction that I knew of, but I got to really see how you architected this experience. And so if you could please walk our listeners through, what are the elements of like a week at Beond?
Sure. That's great. So, yeah, and I just want to preface this by saying that, we also see people who don't come for addiction, right? There's people that come for optimization as well, and people that come for more mood and trauma. And we have addiction. So the length of the program really depends on the goals and what each individual needs. It's very customized that way.
Got it. So it could be a week, it could be longer.
Could be longer, people on Suboxone and other things. There's way more prep that starts with a US-based licensed nurse practitioner who helps them taper even before they come.
Okay.
So each person, there's an intake process, there's a medical application. Our physicians review that. We do look for pre-existing heart conditions, seizures, history of severe mental illness. All of that could be highly risky for Ibogaine. And once somebody decides they want to come, they're matched with a coach, which is great because they get 3 or 4 coaching hours before they come and after they leave, right, to integrate with the same coach. So already they're prepping their mind and their soul for this experience and talking about their intentions. And the coaches have all used Ibogaine themselves to heal, so they can really share and be a guide and a buddy in that way. And then when you arrive, there's a medical intake process. You meet with the nurses. There's an EKG that happens right away on site. There's also people can do daily activities right when they arrive. If there's yoga, there's daily massage, there's art therapy, somatics, things like that, of that nature. There's also a morning gratitude circle, which is really cool, that starts at 10 a.m. each morning, where people connect and they make lifelong friends and they talk about what they're grateful for, because Ibogaine is a great reprogramming tool. And so we're trying to teach what they can do when they also go home and how to program themselves. Then the next morning, there's typically, there always is labs. We look at liver enzyme levels to make sure that people are safe to have Ibogaine on day 4. Typically they have Ibogaine, they're prepared, they've met with we have 3 primary therapists right now, and that's growing. We're hiring more therapists, and we're working on another space next door with even more rooms, because demand has been really high. Yeah, it's a blessing. And they're preparing with the therapist, and they're talking about their childhoods and belief systems. And it's not just getting off the drugs for many people, because as we know, addiction is but a symptom usually of trauma, intergenerational or childhood trauma, as well as physiological. But they're able to say, okay, this is not just about stopping the addiction. This is about living your best self. And in order to do that, what do you need to heal that's beneath the addiction? For addiction clients, that is. If it's for trauma clients, of course, they go deeper into that before, so they can really align their mind and their soul with the medicine when they do have their treatment on day 4, which takes place in our medical room with our nursing team, our physician. You're hooked up to a heart monitor. You have an IV in with a solution that protects your heart, and you're really well taken care of. That's what people always say. Like, they can focus on the experience and go really deep because they're not worried about their heart or their physical body.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something I wish I would have had during my treatment, that I didn't. So, and then you're listening to noise canceling headphones and music, and you have the eye mask on. And I think what's great about Ibogaine is that you don't lose touch with this reality. So like with DMT, you're completely gone, and that can be really important for connecting with God and something much greater. But I think because you always have one foot in reality, your identity, you're able to look at your memories and your life, and what has made you up until this point, your belief systems. We all project stories onto everything in each moment, and all those stories are from the past. And I think Ibogaine is so unique because it does get into the recesses of your programming, your memory, and you're able to sort of clear and reset any stuck energy that you're carrying from the past, that's fear-based or an old way of seeing, really. And that in a sense is really powerful for people. Meanwhile, I think so we're talking about what happens. So that happens, the visions typically last, depending on each person and how they metabolize, for about 4 hours, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have a sense of time, though.
Yeah, you don't have, and that's the other thing. People are always like, it's so long. Of course, you lose sense of time, and the insights continue until the evening, and then people, once they're deemed safe, they go back to their room. They're led back to their room, and the next day, Ibogaine's a stimulant, so it is a little hard to sleep that night. So people are pretty tired, and they're processing the next day. And usually people have a really deep cry, a really beautiful release that next day, which is great, because by the next day after that, they tend to feel pretty good, lots of energy. It's a natural antidepressant for many. And they continue to meet with their therapist daily, unpack what they've seen, talk about how they're going to actually take what they've learned and bring it into their daily life. And so they create, now each client that leaves creates about a 2 to 3 page document with their therapist, related to action items for what they can do, every day, the next 90 days when they get home, to actually change a lot of their habits and ways of being. And through that, there's profound, I think, healing with family members. There's a lot of people that start new careers. There's people that leave relationships that aren't serving them. And and that's the other beautiful thing. Ibogaine stays in your body the longest of all psychedelics. They believe it metabolizes into something called noribogaine in your liver, which can last up to 90 days. So you have that amount of time to create new habits, and it's easier to create new habits for some reason. People stop using caffeine a lot of the time. People, we're seeing clients also for eating disorders, sex a lot lately, sex addiction, which is very interesting. And it does help. It does interrupt those behaviors. And I think if you're really able to spend the time afterwards, taking everything you've learned into account, you can truly change and interrupt the habit for good. So that's how, and then, typically on other days, there's booster doses and things if deemed medically safe and if the person wants it. Sometimes people are interested in using Bufo, which people might know about in your audience or not, is similar to 5-MeO-DMT, the God molecule. And other times people don't, but it is really based on what each person needs. And there's, a whole psych team and a medical team working with each client, not as if they're a patient and the symptom needs to be healed, but more looking at the whole person and what do we think would best serve them. And sometimes we talk to spouses and we talk to parents about how they can help, because oftentimes these people have changed so radically in just 10 days, but the person at home hasn't changed that much. They don't know what to expect. And so therefore that person needs to do their own work and also needs to forgive or accept or have some flexibility.
Or come visit Beond.
And that's been the case. We have like a family who's, people send their spouses often.
Yeah.
We not anymore together. We allowed that at first, but we saw that it was hard for people to focus on themselves. So now sometimes one part of the couple will come and then the other part of the couple will come maybe with one day together. So the second person can be inspired by the first. But one family I think has sent 3 people already and wants to send the 4th. And and I don't even think there was any addiction issues there. It was mostly for trauma. And it's been remarkable to witness the lasting changes. And so that was sort of my thesis question, like, how can we use this in a context where we can provide lasting change? Because I think too often with psychedelics, you have the big insight and then it's sort of gone and it's not applied to their life. And so, we have,
and especially people that are coming to you with addiction issues.
Yeah.
How do you make it last?
Yeah. How do you make it last? So I think, we'll be able to do more in the future, but we already do offer, you speak with the same coach when you do go home, and they can continue talking to that person for up to a year or more if they want to, weekly. And then, we have weekly therapy alumni group therapy sessions that are free. I think just started maybe about a month ago with a Yale mindfulness researcher who leads weekly online mindfulness training for alumni that's free. So I think the future too is, as people heal, it's sort of a continuum. Just from my own experience, it's sort of this line of healing. They become, their own healer, right? They're empowered, and then they go on to help other people. And so the question becomes, what does that look like for the future? And also people want to come back for other reasons, maybe optimization a couple years later. And what medicines do we bring in there? And so we're beginning to make new hires, psychiatrists who work with psychedelics and other medicines for those people who want to continue. But yeah, it's been really a beautiful thing to witness the healing in people and see that, and and to, I think, grow this team. We have about 25 employees now. And we're able to offer plant medicines to a lot of, our nurses come from ERs and traditional medicine, and they didn't know what psychedelics were, a lot of them, before they were trained and started working with us. And, we have one nurse who has gotten off he's seen the change in clients. He's gotten off his antidepressants through microdosing psilocybin and working with this practitioner who's sort of guiding him, and he's totally changed. And then we offered Bufo for the staff a couple weekends ago with this female psychiatrist from Mexico City who's just amazing. And the team, that their hearts are so open, yet they're able to practice Western medicine. And it's been really interesting for me to bring both worlds together. So yeah, that's really
It's a beautiful description of your program, Talia. You did forget one thing, which is the food. I have to say that the food is amazing and very healing and very clean and really lovely. And for me, when I spend time at a retreat center, that's really important. But I just really commend you and your entire team. It's very rare to meet such an incredibly dedicated group of literal angels. I feel like every single one of you is just an actual angel. So it was a very transformative experience for me. And if anyone out there is listening, I realize we didn't really get into, what is Ibogaine and isn't safe and things like that. So I'm hoping you do your research on that part, because we're more talking about, okay, once you know what Ibogaine is, if you know someone out there who is struggling with addiction or really needing a major reset, and you're wondering where is a safe place to have this experience, I obviously highly recommend Beond. It is a beautiful place where you will feel so taken care of. And I personally felt so safe being in a medical setting and, having the anti-nausea medicine. So I wasn't vomiting the whole time. And I had done Iboga in the jungle. And then to compare that to Ibogaine, there's very, very different experiences. And I felt a lot more safe to just really allow the experience to show me what I needed to see. And it was surprising because, as I said, I didn't come there for addiction, but I ended up giving up 3 C's after that experience that I totally didn't expect: coffee, chocolate, who knew? And cannabis, which I never would have expected were addictions in my life, but my body was just like, nah, not for me anymore. I've, been able to reintegrate each one of them a little bit since then, but it was very interesting that I had such a complete reset. And like you said, saw relationships that were toxic and things that needed to change, and just an amazing reset beyond what I expected. So we are coming to the end of our time, but please tell us, how can people get in touch with you and your team and find out more about your program if they have someone that they love that they think could be helped by what you're doing?
So they can just reach out to us through the website, beond.us, no Y, beond.us. There's an inquiry form and we follow up, within 12 hours typically, and we'll schedule a call and just listen to what's going on and let you know if we think it's a good fit. But yeah, that's the best way. And we're here to help, and we're grateful that we're able to do this work.
Yeah, well, amazing. I mean, sometimes I think our own personal struggles feel so difficult in the moment, and we don't know why we're going through such hard things, but you're just such an amazing example, Talia, of like turning your own personal struggle into a mission to help others. It gives it meaning. It gives your grandmother's experiences meaning. And I know that, like I said in the beginning, you really spend most of your time saving lives. So thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for taking this time to tell us about it. And everyone, beond.us, and also on all the social media channels. I definitely recommend following these guys. Thanks so much, Talia.
Thank you.